Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome to Belgrade Online,
An online ministry of Belgrade Avenue United Methodist Church.
Welcome to Belgrade Online. I'm Dan, the video editor of Belgrade Online. Here are this week's announcements, followed by Dan's sermon and some music to brighten your day. Thanks again for watching Belgrade Online.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Pastor Dan here. Hope everyone is having a fantastic week so far. And I hope no one's hurt their back shoveling all the snow out there. But for real, I wish we could have some snow for Christmas and for New Year's, and then it can just kind of melt and go away. But I'm sure it's just the calm before the storm, and it's holding out, and it's going to just destroy all of us. But alas, here we are. It's probably going to be a brown Christmas. But anyways, we're still having Christmas Eve services, and this coming Sunday is Christmas Eve. We're going to have a 10 a.m. service and a 5 p.m., and they're both going to be the same service. They're both going to be special Christmas Eve services. So I invite you to come out to 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. They're going to be great services. There's a few things that might be a bit different as far as special music goes between the two services, but as a whole, they're the same service. So I invite you to come out 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve to Belgrade Church to celebrate with us. And the next announcement we have is in our sanctuary. If you've seen it this Christmas season, it is full of poinsettias everywhere. If you are interested in sponsoring one of those poinsettias in the name of a loved one who's passed on, you can do that on our website or send us a check and for $25, I believe they are, or you can sign up in our lobby. And you can take it home with you after the 5 p.m. Christmas Eve service. And you can have it to take home. And if you water it, it'll probably outlive you. So that's available to you for poinsettias. Next thing, if you have seen our front windows leading up to our ramp, there's gorgeous artwork, window artwork done. And there's an artist whose name is Dinah Langshan, and she did all that freehand. And there's no stencils or anything, that just came out of her mind and onto the windows. And so she doesn't always take money from us. So we would love to bless her. And if you would love to give and bless her with a little Christmas gift for doing such a wonderful job 2 years in a row for us on our windows, you can send that to our office, and in the memo put the artist, and we'll know where to put that. So we invite you to help make her Christmas more special, because she made ours more special. Next up, we've been as a church, we went out to Coppin Gardens this past Thursday night and did some Christmas carols and brought some treats and had some great conversations with the residents there. And so thank you to the volunteers who came out to that. It was a wonderful time. And a huge thank you to the volunteers who came out to our second Harvest Food Drive this past Sunday and Hy-Vee ham giveaway, because it was absolute pandemonium. But it worked. It was wonderful. We had over 30 volunteers. And I'm looking down at the numbers to make sure I get it right. We were able to serve 479 families with fresh produce and 570 full hams we were able to give away. And it was an absolute crazy morning. There were lines over a mile long in different directions. The police stopped out. News people came out. Most were gracious. However, there's always those few that, give volunteers a good story to tell later on. So, but I just want to say a huge thank you to all the volunteers that came out to make that happen. Huge thank you to Second Harvest for bringing their food trucks down here so that we can give this food away for people that need it, and to Hy-Vee for help giving hams away. So, wonderful time, and thank you all for coming out and joining us. So, That's the one thing, and then the last thing I've got for you is, as a church, we have been supporting and raising money this past Advent for charity water. In Christmas in Slow-Mo, our series that we concluded last week, we've been talking about how to worship more fully, how to love all, how to spend a little bit less on our gifts, however, give more meaningfully. And one of the things we decided to do as a church, our outreach team had this idea, well, with some of the money we're saving by spending a little bit less, why don't we take some of that and give it to an organization that can help people around the world? And this organization, Charity Water, does amazing things because over a third of the world does not have access to clean water. And that leads to poor hygiene, which leads to all kinds of different illnesses and diseases and malnutrition and death. And it's terrible things. But for a very small amount of money, we can save lives of people for a year. And so far, we've collected enough money this month alone to save well over 40 people for the next year by giving them access to clean water. And so we're going to keep collecting money for this for the rest of the year, for the rest of the month. And so if you would like to join with us in giving, if you have given, thank you so much. If you haven't, would you consider giving? And if you give, write water in the memo, so we'll put 100% of what you give towards this. Because we've so far saved the lives of 40 people for the next year. We'd love to double that. It'd be wonderful to get 80 to 100 people to save them by giving them access to clean water for the next year. So would you consider giving and joining us with that? And we would like to show you a short video on what that's all about for this charity water. What you're about to see is an American guy who's out there, and he's with two Native girls that live in this particular region. I believe it's Malawi. And they have to walk over 2 hours to get their water. And let's watch this video to see how he handles it.
If you're a teenage girl living almost anywhere in rural Africa, your ability to go to school is entirely dependent on where you go to find water. It is absolutely not fair, but for women and girls, it is often the very first priority every single day. I'm currently in southern Malawi with my new friends, Betha and Bethia, and we're walking to their water source. Both Betha and Bethia are averaging 2 days a week at school because of this responsibility. Taxi! Let's go. This is a dry riverbed, and women and girls come here, dig down into the sand deep enough that they can get a little bit of water to pool at the surface. These holes are up to 5-6 feet deep. They'll go as deep as about 10 feet. We've heard horrific stories about these holes collapsing, small children being trapped in the sand, dying. The source that you're competing with livestock for, cows and goats. You don't have a choice. Water is life. So precious. Oh, can we take a quick break? Oh, 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
Wow, this was no finger.
You are just too quick to get tired. So they are laughing at you.
Too quick to get tired, they said.
Yeah.
Too quick to get tired. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's not lost on me that 2 out of 3 of us are doing this walk in flip-flops, by the way. We know from earlier this week talking with both of these two that they would rather be in school. They would rather be studying, working on future opportunities, becoming nurses or teachers. It's just not possible to imagine a different future when you're limited to 40% attendance every week.
Well, that was pretty powerful. So this is one thing that you can do. You can help save the lives of people by just giving a little bit of money. We can't save the world, but we can do a little bit. And if everybody in the world did a little bit, we could do a lot. So Belgrade Church, we're just gonna do a little bit, and so far a little bit is doing a lot of good. So I invite you to join us. Well, with that, I did not preach this morning. We had a special guest speaker. Her name is Kathryn Lozada from the organization Isiah. And now, one thing that I love about Belgrade is that Belgrade Avenue Church is that there's such a huge heart for people and for outreach here. And so one of the things I've really noticed in the last couple of years is that I believe that that the vision for our church, specifically Belgrade Church, that I believe God is calling us to make outreach the center focus of Belgrade Avenue Church. And so if you have supported our ministry or are interested in supporting our ministry, this is where that money goes, to be able to do things to help other people. And so this past couple weeks, I've been starting to get involved with another clergy group in Mankato. And the first time we met a couple weeks ago, they invited me to a meeting that there was in another church. And there was a representative from the organization Isiah talking about what they do and how we can help. And so I was able to meet Kathryn Lozada, and I invited her to come speak this morning. And this is one way that we can, her organization that she's a representative for, Isiah, it's one way that we can help reach out to other people, to our neighborhoods and our community and our state and beyond. What she's going to talk about, you might think that this is a political thing, and it is. However, not like you might think. Jesus was very political. Everything he did was political. But what I mean by that is that it was not partisan, because the word political simply means how we collectively make decisions together. Now, when we're talking about like government kind of political, that's a whole different set. But what this organization Isiah is about, it's a faith-based organization. It is nonpartisan. It is not supporting one candidate over another or one platform over another. It's simply trying to call churches together, faith organizations together, across faiths, across churches, and hear what's important in each one of our communities, and kind of gather people together and get us talking, and how can we enact change for everyone to make this world a better place for everybody. And so this organization works with anybody, all sides of the aisle. It's nonpartisan, and so it seemed, when I heard her talk and how she organized the discussion, it seemed like a wonderful thing to have happen. So I had her come in this morning. She had a free morning this morning, and I didn't have a sermon plan for this morning yet at this point a couple weeks ago. So I asked her to come and speak. So I hope that you enjoy hearing about Isiah Ministries from Kathryn Lozada. And after this, she's going to be joining us for the first Wednesday night that we're going to be having in January, which is going to be on Wednesday night, the 10th, I believe. And for our first Wednesday night supper, and she'll be organizing a discussion group for one night about this. And it's instead of us hearing her, she said, instead of hearing her talk, she's going to get us talking. So she wants to hear what's important to us. And so I invite you to come out to that as well. And with that said, hope you enjoy this message by Kathryn, hearing about Isiah, and I will see you next Sunday, this coming Sunday, December 24th, Christmas Eve at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. Have a wonderful week, y'all.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you all for having me here today. Kathryn Lozada, Southern Minnesota organizer with Isiah. And I know some of the curiosity was, why in the world are we having this person come talk about something political right before Christmas? Any tensions about faith and politics in here? Okay, I get that everywhere I go. And I'm so grateful that the heart of today and the heart of how we're called to walk in the world is love. And politics is collective decision making. And it's about living out love in everything that we do. So that's part of the conversation that I'd like to have with you all today, and hopefully ongoing, and invite you all to consider what that looks like for you all as individuals, as a congregation, as a community, building Minnesota the kind of beloved community that reflects every human being is worthy of dignity and respect as a beloved child of God. How does that sound so far? All right. So, again, I know I'm here on the Sunday before Christmas with an invitation to wrestle together about how God comes to us here on earth as a refugee who grows up to be an organizer, who builds a following, and challenges the systems of oppression to bring about love and peace and justice here on earth. I never thought I'd be a community organizer, but I have felt called to social justice my whole life and tried to stay open and discern how I'm meant to do that most effectively. So I wanted to share a little bit about why Isiah's work matters to me and how that relates to how I was shaped by my own faith community growing up, a little bit about the organization, and some invitations to next steps beyond today as well. So my parents decided to raise me in a very social justice-oriented Presbyterian church, sorry you all, in suburbs west of Minneapolis. And I affectionately call it a hippie church, from people who created the community out of how do we put our faith in action in everything that we do. And we're called to be peacemakers, therefore, how are we calling on our government to be a better neighbor too? Protesting the Vietnam War, thinking about our role as being good stewards of the earth and our natural resources, and they were doing like pollinator gardens and composting before it was popular. They did discernment and stepped into the sanctuary movement in the 80s, recognizing our government was playing a role in creating refugees, people fleeing Central America, seeking refuge, but because of our government's role and a set of politics, decision-making, we couldn't recognize them as refugees even though they were making the hardest sacrificial decision to leave home and find shelter elsewhere. And years later, I got to be part of Southside Presbyterian Church in Tucson, Arizona, where tens of thousands of people from Central America slept on the floors of that church and then were connected to essentially another underground railroad across the country to seek shelter, to be welcomed, as we're called to do, was welcome the immigrant and the stranger. And my home church was deciding to do that before I was born. And they welcomed a man from El Salvador who fled his country because he didn't want to kill his neighbors. He didn't want to join the army. He worried about his own safety, so he fled. And my home church welcomed him and also stood up for him, stood by him for 20 years and to defend him against potential deportation. And he became part of the community that I grew up in. We learned his story in confirmation class. I saw him get married and raise a family in our church. And our home church also partnered with, not assuming we knew what was best for some of our neighbors, partnered with local Indigenous and African American communities. We had a sweat lodge in the backyard of the church. And for me, growing up as an awkward, nerdy, only child, to have so many amazing elders to look up to build an intergenerational community that they poured into me, and they also modeled asking this question and wrestling with how do we love God and love our neighbors in everything that we do? In our relationships, with the neighbors that we can see and the neighbors we can't see. How do we shape our systems? How do we call on our government to be a better neighbor too? And that our government is us. And people would lift up in prayer time a health concern for a member of our own congregation and calling on our government to be a better neighbor in Latin America or the Middle East. And I still really wrestled as a teenager about how amazing my home church was, and also seeing some use Christianity to justify hurting others, excluding others, oppressing others, reinforcing systems of oppression around the world. And I had a hard time reconciling that. And as I've grown up and tried to figure out, okay, what in the world can I as one person do? That's really overwhelming. Okay, how can I focus, narrow it down, try to discern how can I be most effective at bringing about social justice here on earth and thinking about our systems? Because many faith communities are great at identifying immediate needs in our community and putting Band-Aids on, and the Band-Aids are necessary. And how do we swim upstream and shape the systems and interrupt the needs for so many Band-Aids in the first place? So I studied international relations and Latin American studies, and more of my background is in kind of U.S. Latin America relationships, trying to call on our government to be a better neighbor in the Western Hemisphere and think about immigration justice, and also making sure that every child here gets the chance to get poured into and loved on at home and in our schools, and thinking about what does that kind of education system look like that actually recognizes the dignity of every child, no matter their home language, how much money their parents have, where they were born, right? And a friend introduced me, invited me to what we call like a strategic leadership assembly with Isiah, probably about 8 years ago now, when I was working for the community school initiative in Northfield at the time after college. And I realized this is what I've been missing. It's like white, black, and brown people in a room from many different walks of life, asking the same question: how can we love God and love our neighbors and build like a multiracial, multi-faith democracy here together? If we share that value of love God and love our neighbors, and some people didn't consider themselves people of faith, but were like, yeah, let's love our neighbors. We can figure that out together, right? It shouldn't be so complicated, but it is. But that intention, that common goal, and that moved me so much. So I started getting involved as a volunteer first, and then they created a Southern Minnesota community organizer position. Like I said, I never thought that I'd be a community organizer. I was like the weirdo that resonated with animals more than humans when I was growing up, so I thought I'd be a veterinarian. But I have felt this call to social justice and tried to answer that call as best I can. So Isiah is a home for people of faith and shared values who are acting collectively and powerfully towards racial, economic, and climate justice in Minnesota. And the key verse is Isaiah 58:12, that you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. That's that call for the work here on earth. And our organization has expanded significantly in the last few years, from around 100 mainly Christian congregations across the spectrum to include a Black barbershop and congregation cooperative, a Muslim coalition with over 40 mosques across the state, Kids Count on Us coalition that organizes over 500 community-based childcare centers, a young adult coalition that's recognizing our young people are not necessarily in faith institutions much anymore, but how can we meet them where they're at on college campuses and sometimes in a brewery, and a growing rural organizing project, recognizing a whole lot of people are left behind by our current politics. So this is a vehicle to put our faith and shared values into action, build multiracial, multi-faith, beloved community together. And constantly thinking about that tension, like I mentioned at the beginning, of faith in politics. Often our society tells us to put our faith here and our politics over here, but we're whole people. What does it look like to bring our values into public and see democracy and public is collective decision-making? And there's often an undercurrent of who's worthy of our collective resources. And faith communities have an incredibly powerful role. And we can do that in a nonpartisan way, rooted in our faith and values, and have that question of how are we seeing those values violated in the world as it is? It doesn't mean neutral. It means committed to our faith and values. And we want to create a new people-centered politics in our state, one rooted in abundance where everyone is in and no one is out, and recognizing that politics is also personal. If we think about today's Advent grounding of love, there's often decisions made about us, without us, that affect us and people we love. The headlines can feel super overwhelming, right? But if we think about how is the healthcare system, or how is the immigration system, how is our economy, how we move around our communities to get to our healthcare, or to get to work, or get to people we love, activities we enjoy, how is that affecting us and people we love? And are we deciding to be part of that decision making? And we talk about building people power, not to wield power over others, but the ability to get things done. I love the word in Spanish poder, which is both a verb and a noun. It means power, and it means to do, to be able to. It's the ability to get things done that you care about. So by organizing more people of faith and shared values, we can get more things done together. How does that sound? Yeah. Not for power over, but power with, for the common good. And many congregations like yours are already doing incredible work. This heart of the outreach mission that I keep hearing about and keep wanting to learn more about. Beyond charity water, I'm sure there's 1,000 other things that I haven't heard yet. And together we can do more, plus address the systems that perpetuate injustice. So I want to give some examples. And this is the long-term work, right? So in 2017, Isiah's been around for about 30 years. We've been growing as one of the most powerful organizations in the state, and it's taken time and a whole lot of people of faith and shared values to build a more just Minnesota together. So in 2017, 5,000 of our members shaped what we call our faith agenda, vision of an inclusive democracy, caring economy, and just climate future. And if we take that seriously, we take seriously the sustained work to learn, to strategize, to shape our collective decision-making, and to get the most good done for the most people. Sometimes that's on the local level. Sometimes we build enough to make significant strides at the state level for more Minnesotans to thrive across race, religion, gender, and geography. And we've created the conditions over the years for a historic legislative session, and we finally won our whole 5, 10, 20-year agenda, got it across the finish line this legislative session. With lots of partners, we can't do it alone, but it would not have happened without thousands of people of faith and shared values like you all. So I just want to lift up regular people of faith and values like you all made this possible through years of organizing. Together in the Mankato-St. Peter area, what we did together was strategy meetings and lots of contacts to the legislators. And we shaped the narrative to say every beloved child of God needs X, Y, and Z, with social media, letters to the editor, to newspapers. We had a faith leader sign-on letter to the Mankato Free Press for paid family and medical leave. There were key moments where we brought carpools to the Capitol for big coalition rallies. We brought the Capitol to us on Zoom. We had weekly Southern Minnesota co-governance Zooms with 6 partner legislators, including Reps. Brandon Frederick from this area, with our people all across the region, talking about how do we move this agenda together and give us homework. We had a small business caring economy roundtable with the local legislators and a faith leader conversation. We held an in-district event, we call it, with 80 neighbors across race and faith to push in the final stretch on our agenda. And it was an incredibly, incredibly powerful moment. And we visited over 1,000 neighbors near the end of legislative session to let people know, here's what's possible. Give your legislators a call. Tell them what you care about, because they're supposed to work for you, right? We want to make sure that our elected officials are working for us and with us. And that requires us to step into our democracy together. I want to emphasize people of faith were instrumental in these historic victories, And we have not fixed everything towards a just Minnesota that everybody has what they need to thrive and feel safe and loved. It's up to us to continue the long work of systemic justice. So all across Isiah this summer and fall, we've been re-engaging our local communities to share back what we've made possible together, see how that could impact us and people we love, and ask our people what we still need to thrive. Deep listening is how we refresh ourselves and our relationships and our agenda priorities so we embody responsive democracy. So here in the Mankato-St. Peter area, we've engaged over 400 people, neighbors like you all, in a variety of ways the last few months, in relational conversations with people we know and love, forums in our churches, mosques, and colleges, and knocking on doors. I want to see if some of these things that have emerged have resonated, and then would love to hopefully have more discussion with you all in January. On the 10th, I'll be back and hope to have more of a discussion rather than just talking at you for a while. But the primary themes we've been hearing so far are climate, so ensuring everyone has the clean water, clean air, and clean energy, and that we address the climate crisis at the speed and scale needed. Housing, affordable, dignified, energy-efficient housing for all. Transportation and transit, so an affordable, accessible, sustainable transportation system that connects our communities within and to each other. And then the care spectrum, so everyone can get the care they need affordably and close by. So that includes childcare, health care, mental health care, elder care. Does that resonate with you all? Some of it at least? Seeing some nods. Some of you are percolating, some of you are in discernment, that's okay. So we're now in the season of preparation, just like Advent. We're taking these priorities that have emerged. It's not our director that writes the agenda in her office. It's us. We get to shape this together and decide what we do about it together. So we're now taking these priorities that have emerged and are working to shape them into strategic issue campaigns to bring them into the new year. So this is how we work from the world as it is to create the world as it should be. So I will hang out after service. If you want to connect more, would love to get to know more of you all, hear what you care about, have some resources available and invitations to next steps. And I'll be back on Wednesday night, January 10th, And again, hope to get to know you all more, have more discussion, have more discernment, partner with you all to think about what does living out, loving God and loving our neighbors look like for you as individuals, as a congregation, building on the good work that you're already doing, and hopefully partnering with more congregations in the area. So thank you for your time with me this morning. Hope to get to know you all more, and blessings on your Christmas season as well.
Behold,
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Belgrade Online. If it was life-giving and encouraging to you, please let us know by visiting our giving page at baumc.org/give. Thanks again for watching and have a blessed week.